On a small island on the tip of the Netherlands lays an island of Texel. This small island in the Wadden Sea is an intertidal zone in the southeastern part of the North Sea. To enter this largest, most populated island of the West Friesland Islands, you must board a ferry from Den Helder, led north by the gulls squabbling in the air. The rugged west coast is pounded by the prevailing winds and waves crashing in from the North Sea, creating beautiful large sand beaches and rugged dunes, creating a natural sea wall. About 1/3 of Texel is a protected nature reserve, a wetland now called Utopia, designed for birds to nest in or a fuel stop before carrying on their long migration. Welcome to Texel. On a frosty cold morning in late January lays the frozen dead feathers of the pheasant killed on the night before, stuck in time in the ice till the morning rays penetrate the valleys of the dunes below. Buzzards and other scavenging birds like the magpie are tempted down to the frozen floor to pick at the scraps. Winter can be tough on the island, and nothing is left to waste. Eating any little frozen flesh left at the base of the feather, taking whatever nutrients he can from the leftover spoils. While they share some similarities with their corvid family, magpies possesses an extremely long tail. In fact, a magpie's tail is often roughly the same length as its entire body. Why magpies have such long tails remains up for debate, but it may provide them with the ability to make swift turns in the air. This would allow the birds to evade larger predators and make up for their rather average flying abilities. The magpie is actually considered one of the most intelligent animals in the world, and one of the few non-mammal species able to recognize itself in the mirror. As clever as the magpie is, still having difficulty with the frozen down feathers sticking to his eye. The dune landscape on Texel is a unique habitat for wildlife. Dislufter is where the tide comes and meets the dunes, forming a marshy environment rich in both fauna and flora. Texel is known for its wildlife, particularly in winter, when birds of prey and geese take up temporary residency here, taking advantage of those milder coastal climates. Intertidal habitats are considered the most nutritious in the world. Salt-loving plants flourish here due to the salt water from the North Sea flooding the estuaries and dune lakes. Many waders and waterfowl take advantage of this nutrient-rich habitat, all feeding in the same location but adapting and evolving in different ways so not to directly compete with one another. This can be seen in many ways, like how their bills have adapted to use in different ways to feed. One of the most common birds that can be found on the mudflats and the banks of the estuary is the noisy oystercatcher, working together sometimes in huge numbers, using their medium-sized bills to probe the sand and mud for small invertebrates, working along the high tide line as it reveals fresh untouched feeding grounds, probing for shellfish, particularly cockles and mussels, which it either prizes or hammers open with its strong flattened bill. Scientists have found oystercatchers' bills to evolve slightly different ways depending on their habitat or their main source of food. Some have stronger and flattener bills, perfect for hammering mussels. Others longer, thinner, pointier for pulling more delicate work like earthworms or prying open clams. The ring plover can often be seen scuttling behind the oystercatcher, taking advantage of all those small crustaceans missed, or any small invertebrates stirred up in the air by the oystercatcher. using its short but rounded black-tipped bill to pluck them from the air, using speed and 2 outer webbed toes to run across the mud flaps and strike their prey. This one striking down on a worm coming to the surface, using all its weight to pull it from the protection of the mud before it can retreat back down. In breeding season, these birds can often be seen imitating a bird with a broken wing to lure away any predators from the nest that are vulnerable in the open shingle beaches. Some birds brave further out to the small pools and puddles left by high tide. Sandlings, taken from the name of sand ploughman, can be seen skipping along the sand in lines, working in groups, making sure if one misses, the other can catch the prey. Sandlings are very quick, causing both legs to leave the air, stopping frequently and suddenly, ready to take anything in range of its narrow but round black bill, hunting mainly small crabs and other invertebrate prey buried in the sand in the upper intertidal zone, probing its beak 2 to 3 centimeters into the mud crust, ploughing the sand as they go. Sandlings are hardy birds, breeding in summer in the high Arctic and migrating south to winter here, taking advantage of this nutrient-rich island and the milder climates in winter months, before following the sun north and breeding back in the Arctic. Bigger birds, like the Eurasian curlew, take advantage of areas that other species can't simply reach, using their eccentric appendages that probe deep in the mud and below the water surface. This is one of the largest waded species in its class, at 50 to 60 centimeters in length and a body weight of up to 1.3 kilograms. The down-curved bill of the curlew allows it to forage for earthworms and other deep burrowing prey, such as crabs and other crustaceans, taking advantage of food that other species cannot compete in. Some venture further up the creeks to the small tidal lakes to find food. This redshank wandered off alone, confidently strutting past a family of mallards to get to the lake, searching near the reeds and bank, probing and looking for small fish and invertebrates. A black-headed gull can be seen keeping near, taking advantage of whatever the redshank stirs up beneath the surface. Dislufta is really a utopia for birds, a place for them to take shelter and feed up for the winter. Waterfowl, waders and birds of prey all share this beautiful and diverse ecosystem. On the very north tip of the island lies Texel's most famous landmark, the Island Lighthouse. Overhead you can often hear the roar of the Royal Netherlands Air Force training over the uninhabited sand islands north of the peninsula. This island has had its share of war in its history, with the Battle of Texel taking place here, being the last battle in the Third Anglo-Dutch War, or even the Georgian uprising in World War II, when a rebellious battalion of the Red Army soldiers from Soviet Georgia who uprised against the Nazi-occupied Texel. As these fighter jets fly over in formation, storm clouds form out to sea and roll in. As they release precipitation on the fields below, everyone escaping for shelter, but of this smallest of thrush family, the redwing. They won't miss this opportunity as earthworms come to the surface. Redwings often migrate on clear nights from Scandinavia or Iceland till they reach Texel. These are highly sociable birds and in winter are invariably seen in flocks feeding on the fields. They can also be seen mixing freely with other thrushes and are often found accompanied with fieldfares, another migrant thrush from Scandinavia. Redwings don't take regular migrations and only migrate when their food supply is low or the weather is too bad. Unlike other migratory birds, redwings are known as nomads, very rarely returning to the same place to spend the winter, retreating to the hedgerow for protection as the sun sets, as the wind picks up and the relentless storm and torrential rain continues overnight. Early morning from the night before, the skies begin to clear as the morning commute and rat race starts for the wide range of geese on the island. Greylag geese travel in large flocks from the lake to the grassland fields to feed during the day. Geese flourish here over winter, feeding on the nutrient-rich grassland normally preserved for the many sheep in Texel. Egyptian geese, once only native to northern Sahara, now, because of escaped birds and feral pockets, have now spread and populated most of Western Europe and other continents. Egyptian geese bond is so strong they can often be seen overwintering together over Texel. European stonechats can be found on the fences surrounding the fields to keep the sheep at bay. It can be frequently seen sitting on top of fences, flicking its wings and making its call like two stones being hit together, dipping down to the floor to hunt insects before returning to his outlook post. The fields are fed by the dikes where the grey heron can be found, stalking its prey beneath the surface along the reed bank. This prehistoric bird uses its bill as a harpoon to thrust through the water to capture the unexpected fish or frog. Until using their 6-foot wingspan to fly into the setting sun over the dunes and North Sea. This little island of Texel, a small bird utopia.